He died on her 5th birthday. 8 years later, his letters started arriving, all in his handwriting, all dated after his death. Each one revealed a truth her mother buried, a secret room, a missing past, and a voice that never stopped trying to protect her. When the fire finally ended everything, only one letter survived. It said, "I kept my promise. You're free now." But the postmark came from her father's grave. Lily's 10th birthday wasn't like the others. The living room was quiet, filled with the faint hum of an old refrigerator and the smell of wax from a single candle flickering on a half-melted cake. Her mother's eyes looked tired, the kind of tired that no sleep could fix. When she handed Lily a small, dust-covered wooden box wrapped in faded newspaper, her voice was soft but strained. "This was your father's," she said, avoiding Lily's gaze. "He wanted you to have it when you were old enough." Lily smiled out of politeness, but something about the way her mother's hands trembled made her stomach twist. The box was heavier than it looked, carved with small symbols Lily didn't recognize. She ran her fingers over them, feeling each groove like a secret begging to be told. Her mother told her not to open it yet. "It's locked anyway," she added quickly, and placed the tiny object on Lily's nightstand. But as Lily sat in bed that night, staring at it under the moonlight, she felt a pull. The metal latch gleamed faintly, as though it remembered hands that had once opened it often. The room felt too still, too expectant, and Lily's heartbeat sounded louder than before. Her father's face had faded from memory over the years. There were only 2 pictures of him in the house, both tucked inside the same photo album her mother rarely allowed her to touch. But in her dreams, his image was sharp, alive, and watching. That night, the dream came differently. She wasn't standing in a meadow or at his funeral like she usually was. This time he was standing at the foot of her bed, the darkness bending around him like a shadow trying to hide him from the world. His voice was calm, gentle, yet trembling when he spoke. "Don't open it until she tells you the truth." The words were so clear, they pierced through the haze of the dream, waking her up instantly. Lily sat upright, the room still echoing with the sound of his voice even though he was gone. Her eyes darted to the nightstand. The box sat there exactly as before, untouched, silent. But the air felt heavier now, charged with something unseen. She wanted to believe it was just her imagination, a lingering dream after a long day. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had just been there, watching her breathe. She tried to convince herself that dreams couldn't talk, that voices from the dead didn't crawl through cracks in sleep. But as she reached out to touch the box again, it felt warmer than before, as if it had been held recently. She pulled her hand back, startled. Her mother's door creaked open down the hall, followed by soft footsteps that stopped outside Lily's room. The knob turned once, gently. Not enough to open, just enough to let Lily know someone was there. She froze, pretending to sleep, her heartbeat pounding against the silence. When morning came, sunlight spilled through the blinds, cutting across the wooden box. Lily wanted to tell her mother about the dream, but when she came to the kitchen, her mother was already sitting at the table, staring into an untouched cup of coffee. "Did you sleep?" Lily asked quietly. Her mother looked up with a strange expression, the kind that hides more than it reveals. "Dreams are just noise," she said flatly. "Ignore them." She said it too quickly, as if she already knew exactly what Lily had dreamed. That day at school, Lily couldn't concentrate. Her friends laughed and passed birthday cards, but she kept replaying the dream. She could still see the way her father's lips moved, the urgency in his tone. "Don't open it until she tells you the truth." What truth? About his death? About the night he disappeared? No one ever talked about it. Her mother always changed the subject or said he couldn't handle life. But if that was true, why did his voice sound so desperate? Not broken, but warning her of something. When she came home, she found her mother cleaning out the hall closet. Several of her father's belongings, books, old letters, a jacket that still smelled faintly of tobacco, were being thrown into a trash bag. "We don't need ghosts in this house," her mother muttered. Lily wanted to protest, to say maybe her father's things belonged with the box, but she bit her tongue. Her mother's movements were sharp, mechanical, and her eyes glistened in a way that wasn't quite tears. "Go play," she said. "It's not a good day for remembering." That night, the dream returned. Only this time, Lily wasn't alone. Behind her father's shadow stood a faint outline of another figure. Taller, broader, and silent. The air around them shimmered like heat. Her father reached toward her, eyes pleading. "Please, Lily, not yet." She woke again to the sound of tapping. Steady, rhythmic tapping against the wooden box. It stopped the moment she turned on the lamp. The latch gleamed like an eye-catching light, and for the first time, Lily wished she didn't have it at all. As dawn broke, Lily sat by her window, clutching the box against her chest, afraid to let it out of her sight. Somewhere deep inside her, something had changed. A sense that the gift wasn't a treasure, but a message. Her mother's calmness around it seemed rehearsed, forced, and the way she avoided the box completely only deepened the mystery. Lily didn't understand what the truth meant, but she could feel it lurking in the corners of her home, in her mother's silence, in the missing photographs, and in the way the wooden box seemed to wait for her to disobey. Lily's hands trembled as she unfolded the first letter, the paper soft and yellowed with age. Her father's handwriting was unmistakable, sharp, deliberate, and strangely alive on the page. Her breath caught as she read the date, 3 years after his death. It didn't make sense. The words seemed to pulse under her fingertips, as if ink itself carried a heartbeat. When she reached the final line, "You're not safe when she's smiling," a chill climbed her spine so fast it felt like someone else was breathing down her neck. She wanted to believe it was a cruel prank. Maybe her mother's twisted way of teaching her a lesson about snooping. But when she asked her mother about the box that night, the woman's smile froze midair, and her eyes darted toward the basement door as if expecting something, or someone, to come out. "You shouldn't have opened it," she said flatly, before walking away. The words didn't sound like anger. They sounded like fear disguised as control, and it was that shift in tone that made Lily hide the letter under her pillow instead of tearing it up. For days, Lily couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house, the creak of the hallway floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, even the wind brushing the window, felt deliberate, as if the house was listening. She caught her reflection one night, wide-eyed in the dark, and swore she saw someone standing behind her. The fear wasn't just about ghosts or memories anymore. It was the growing certainty that her father had known something about her mother, something he couldn't tell her while he was alive. Lily began to notice patterns she had ignored before. Her mother's late-night whispers on the phone always stopped when she entered the room. The locked cabinet under the stairs that her mother said was storage. The way her mother's smile lingered too long, like she was waiting for Lily to react. It wasn't just the content of the letter haunting her. It was the timing, the warning, the feeling that the message had arrived exactly when it was meant to. One evening, when her mother was in the shower, Lily returned to the broken box. Beneath the pile of letters, she found a smaller envelope marked, "For when you start to remember." The words made her stomach twist. Remember what? Her father's death? The night it happened? She realized she had only flashes of that day. Her mother's red eyes, the sound of sirens, a toy she'd dropped on the stairs. She had never questioned those gaps before. Now they felt deliberate, like someone had erased parts of her memory. She didn't open the second envelope right away. Instead, she traced the edges, noticing the faint scent of smoke on the paper and something metallic, like dried blood. Her heartbeat pounded louder than the rain outside. A part of her wanted to run to her mother, to demand the truth. But another, stronger part, the one that had read her father's warning, knew that doing so might be the last mistake she'd ever make. That night, Lily hid the box under her bed and locked her door for the first time. Sleep never came. At 3:12 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, careful, stopping right outside her door. Her mother's voice followed, soft and syrupy. "Sweetheart, are you awake?" Lily stayed silent, clutching the edge of her blanket. A second later, the doorknob turned, once, twice, and then stopped. The silence that followed felt alive. The next morning, her mother acted like nothing had happened. She made pancakes, hummed to herself, and smiled that same too-wide smile. But Lily couldn't look away from her hands. There was a faint red stain beneath her nails. "Did you sleep well?" her mother asked. Lily forced a nod, but her mind was already racing back to the letters. How they seemed to appear when she needed them most, as if her father knew this moment would come. Later that day, Lily took the first letter to her school's library and compared it to her father's handwriting from an old birthday card. It was identical. Same slant, same spacing, same pressure marks from a heavy hand. But the card was dated before his death, and the letter long after. Either someone was masterfully imitating him, or her father had found a way to reach her from somewhere that wasn't supposed to exist. As Lily walked home that evening, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. The world around her seemed to shift, trees bending slightly, shadows leaning closer. When she reached the front door, her mother was already waiting, smiling like she'd been standing there for hours. Lily's chest tightened as she remembered the last line again. You're not safe when she's smiling. And suddenly, the smile didn't look like love. It looked like a mask. Lily stood at the kitchen table clutching the letter, her voice trembling as she demanded an explanation. Her mother didn't even look up from her coffee. You're too old for these fantasies, she said sharply, each word slicing through the air like a warning. When Lily pushed the letter forward, her mother's hand slammed over it so fast that the cup spilled. Enough, she shouted, eyes blazing. But behind that fury, Lily saw something else. Fear. It was quick, just a flicker, but unmistakable. That brief crack in her mother's composure only deepened Lily's resolve to keep searching. That night, while the house was still, Lily climbed into the attic for the first time in years. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of old wood and mothballs. Boxes sat stacked like gravestones, each marked with careful handwriting. Christmas, baby clothes, Dad's things. Her flashlight beam trembled as she brushed away cobwebs, her fingers catching on a loose board. Beneath it was a small envelope sealed in brown wax. Her heart lurched when she read the faded ink, her name, and her father's handwriting. Again. The postmark blurred, but the date was clear, the same week her mother had sworn they'd already moved. She crouched in the dim light, tracing the lines of the envelope as if they might burn her. The ink had bled into the paper like it had been written in a rush. She opened it with shaking hands, careful not to tear it. The letter inside was short, just a few uneven lines, but it made her breath catch. They're changing the dates, it said. If you find this, she's still lying. Remember the fire. Lily stared at the words until they blurred. A memory flickered at the edge of her mind. A smell of smoke, a scream, and her mother's arms dragging her outside. She'd always believed the story of the accidental kitchen fire. But what if it wasn't accidental at all? When she came downstairs, her mother was waiting by the doorway, her face shadowed by the dim light. What were you doing up there? She asked, voice calm but heavy, the kind of calm that only comes before a storm. Lily lied, saying she was looking for old photo albums, but her mother's eyes lingered too long on her hands, on the dust, the faint trace of old ink. There's nothing for you up there, her mother said finally. Those things don't belong to you anymore. The tone made Lily's stomach twist. It didn't sound like protection, it sounded like ownership. Over the next few days, the tension between them grew unbearable. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every silence felt dangerous. Lily began to notice how her mother's moods shifted at random. Rage one moment, affection the next, always circling back to guilt. Once, while washing dishes, her mother muttered under her breath, "He should have burned them all." When Lily asked what she meant, her mother froze, then smiled too sweetly. "You misheard me." But Lily knew she hadn't. Determined to prove she wasn't imagining things, Lily took the attic letter to her English teacher, who used to be a handwriting analyst before teaching. The woman studied both letters under magnification and frowned. "It's the same hand," she confirmed quietly. "But there's something off. The newer one was written with pressure, like someone was shaking." Lily's pulse raced. The letters weren't fakes. Someone, her father, or someone pretending to be him, was writing in real fear. That night, Lily couldn't stay still. She walked the halls in the dark, listening to the hum of the house. The air felt heavy, electric. Around midnight, she passed the living room and saw her mother sitting in the dark, staring at an old photograph. The faint light from the street lamps revealed tears on her face, but her expression wasn't grief. It was something closer to guilt. Her mother didn't see her watching. Lily slipped back upstairs silently, but her heart wouldn't stop pounding. In her room, she reread the letter again and again, searching for hidden meaning. They're changing the dates. Who were they? The police? The doctors? Or had her father meant her mother? The word fire repeated in her mind like an echo, but the memory was still too blurry to hold. She pressed her palms to her temples, forcing herself to remember. A flash of orange, smoke, a figure standing by the window, not moving, someone shouting her name. Then, darkness. The next morning, Lily noticed something strange. The calendar in the kitchen, an old one her mother had kept since Lily was little, had 2 dates circled in red ink. One marked the fire. The other, 3 days later, said, "Moved out." Her mother had always told her they left the same day. The inconsistency made Lily's stomach sink. If her mother lied about that, what else had she rewritten? She tore the page from the calendar and hid it in the box under her bed, alongside the letters. When her mother left for errands that afternoon, Lily crept back into the attic, heart pounding. The air was colder now, heavier. She pushed aside the same box she'd opened before, only to find a second compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside were burnt photo fragments, her father's face half gone, her mother standing beside him, smiling. But in the corner of one piece, she saw something she'd never noticed before. A third figure, barely visible, standing behind them in the smoke. And suddenly she realized whatever her mother had been trying to bury hadn't burned away completely. It was still here, waiting to be found. Lily stood frozen at the edge of the basement, the flickering bulb overhead casting uneven light across the concrete floor. The letter she'd found the night before had mentioned the room beneath the heart of the house. It had sounded poetic until she noticed a patch of wall that didn't match the rest. Smoother, newer paint faintly hollow when tapped. Her pulse quickened as she pressed her ear against it. Behind the silence, she swore she heard the faint creak of something metallic, like old hinges shifting in the dark. Whatever was back there had been sealed intentionally, and not just to hide dust or storage boxes. The air grew colder the deeper she explored. Her flashlight beam caught the faint outline of nails and uneven plaster. Lily found a crowbar among her father's old tools, its handle rusted but sturdy enough. Each strike echoed like thunder in the basement's stillness, chunks of plaster breaking away until a jagged opening appeared. The smell that poured out was thick with age, old paper, mold, and something faintly metallic, almost like dried blood. She hesitated, then crawled through, dust coating her skin as she entered a small room untouched by time. Her breath caught when she saw what waited inside. Against the far wall stood a wooden desk, its surface layered with dust, and on it, an old black typewriter, the kind her father used in the only photo she had of him writing. The ribbon still smelled faintly of ink. Beside it lay a sheet of yellowed paper, half filled with uneven lines. She took more than she admits. If she finds this, it means I failed. The words trailed off mid-sentence. Lily's throat tightened as her eyes moved to the next line of objects. Dozens of photographs, all of her as a baby. But in everyone, something was wrong. Her mother was missing. No matter the occasion, a birthday cake, her first steps, her crib, the photos showed Lily with her father, or with strangers she didn't recognize, but never her mother. It didn't make sense. Her mother had countless framed photos of the three of them upstairs, smiling together, yet here, in this forgotten room, history had been rewritten. Lily touched the edge of one photo and saw her father's handwriting on the back. She's not the mother she claims to be. The basement suddenly felt smaller, the air tighter. The faint clacking sound made her spin around. The typewriter key had shifted, one of them pressed down by itself. She stared, wide-eyed, as another key dropped, slow and deliberate. Letter by letter, the ribbon imprinted a single word: run. Lily stumbled backward, her heart slamming in her chest. The air grew dense and the temperature dropped sharply. Somewhere above, she thought she heard a door slam. Her mother's footsteps creaking across the floorboards. She shoved the papers into her bag, not daring to breathe too loudly. As she turned to leave, her flashlight beam hit something tucked behind the desk. A wooden box, identical to the one she'd received on her 10th birthday. Only this one was scorched black on one side, as if it had survived a fire. The latch was already broken, and inside, Lily found what looked like old hospital records, the edges burned and names blurred by smoke. But she recognized her own name on one file: Patient ID 3112, Subject L. Carter, transferred to Guardian M. Carter, maternal. Her father's name wasn't listed anywhere. She could hear her mother calling from upstairs now, voice trembling with forced sweetness. Lily, what are you doing down there, sweetheart? The words sent a chill through her. Her mother hadn't called her sweetheart in years. Lily shut the box, slipped the paper into her jacket, and turned off the flashlight. In the suffocating dark, she could still feel the typewriter behind her, the unspoken words trapped between ink and silence. Her father had been trying to tell her something, and now she knew this room was his last attempt. When she finally climbed out through the cracked wall, she found her mother standing at the top of the stairs. Her hair was perfectly in place, her smile too wide. "You're covered in dust," she said softly, though her tone held no concern. Her eyes darted to the crowbar in Lily's hand, then to the debris on the floor. "You've been breaking things again." Lily wanted to lie, to say she'd found nothing, but her hands were still trembling. Her mother's gaze hardened as she stepped closer, the light from above casting deep shadows across her face. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. The typewriter's echo haunted her mind. That deliberate warning burned into her memory. She replayed her father's unfinished words in her head until dawn. She took more than she admits. What had she taken? His life, his child, or something Lily hadn't yet discovered? The letters, the missing photos, the sealed room, they all pointed to one terrifying truth. Her mother wasn't hiding her grief. She was hiding her past. When morning came, Lily packed the photos, the unfinished letter, and the burned file into her bag. She didn't know where she was going yet. Maybe the town hall archives, maybe the old hospital listed in the file. But one thing was certain. Her father hadn't left her behind. He'd left her breadcrumbs, each one buried under her mother's lies. And somewhere between the fire and the silence, the truth was waiting to be found. A truth her mother had fought her whole life to bury. The neighbor's house sat at the edge of the block, half swallowed by ivy and memory. Lily had passed it hundreds of times as a child, never realizing the old man behind the curtains had witnessed the final days of her father's life. When she knocked, the door opened slowly, revealing Mr. Harlan. His posture bent, but his eyes sharp, as though he'd been waiting for this visit. He didn't seem surprised to see her. He just said, "You look just like him," before stepping aside to let her in. The house smelled faintly of dust and smoke, the air heavy with unspoken things. They sat in his dim living room, where sunlight filtered through lace curtains onto shelves lined with old radios and cassette players. Lily told him she'd found her father's letters, the locked room, the photographs. Mr. Harlan listened in silence, his gnarled hands gripping the edge of his chair. When she finally paused, he let out a long, trembling sigh. "He came to me the night before he died," he said. He was shaking. "Said your mother wasn't who she said she was, not just in the way a person changes. He meant something else." His voice cracked, as if the memory itself had been rotting in his throat for years. Lily leaned forward, her heart pounding. Mr. Harlan shuffled to a cabinet and pulled out a small tin box, unlocking it with a rusted key. Inside lay a single cassette tape labeled in faded blue ink. March 7th, for Lily, if she ever asks. The handwriting was her father's. Her breath hitched. "He told me to give it to you when the time was right," Mr. Harlan murmured. "I didn't know if there'd ever be a right time." His hands shook as he placed the tape in hers. His expression unreadable, somewhere between relief and fear. The plastic case was cracked, but the tape inside looked intact. Lily turned it over, tracing her father's handwriting with trembling fingers. "Did he say what was on it?" she asked. Mr. Harlan hesitated, eyes darting toward the window, as if worried someone might hear. He said it would explain everything, but that once you hear it, you can't unhear it. "He told me your mother would do anything to make sure it stayed buried." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Anything?" The way he said it made her stomach twist. It wasn't a warning. It was a confession. That night, Lily sat alone in her room, the cassette player from the attic perched on her desk. The house was still, except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. She pressed play. At first, all she heard was static, the hiss of time itself. Then her father's voice broke through, soft, shaky, alive. "If you're hearing this, Lily, it means she's still there. You have to listen carefully. She's not your mother." The words struck her like a physical blow. Her breath caught in her throat. He paused, as if choosing his next words with painful care. "I tried to protect you. I thought I could fix it. But it wasn't human, what I brought into our home." The audio crackled, warped by years of dust and neglect, but his tone grew more frantic. "She looks like her, talks like her, but she isn't the woman I married. The day after you were born, something changed. I don't know what she did in that hospital, but it wasn't my wife who came home with you." Lily froze. Her fingers trembled against the pause button, but she couldn't stop listening. His voice broke into muffled sobs. "If you ever start getting letters in my handwriting, it means she's found a way to use me again. Don't trust anything that sounds like me." Lily pressed stop, her pulse pounding in her ears. She sat in silence, staring at the cassette player as though it might start speaking again. Her father's warning felt too specific, too eerie, as if he'd predicted everything that had already happened. Slowly, she rewound the tape and hit play again, needing to be sure she hadn't imagined it. This time, she noticed faint noises in the background. Footsteps, maybe breathing, and then a voice, her mother's, faintly laughing before the tape abruptly cut off. Sleep was impossible that night. Every sound in the house made her flinch. The floorboards creaked, the pipes moaned, and somewhere in the distance she thought she heard that same laugh echoing through the walls. She clutched the tape to her chest, realizing it wasn't just evidence, it was a warning her father had buried in time. Somewhere, the truth about who or what her mother really was had been recorded on that single fragile ribbon of magnetic tape. The next morning, Lily returned to Mr. Harlan's house, but the blinds were drawn and the door was locked. She called his name, knocked until her knuckles ached, but there was no answer. The mail still sat in his box, untouched. Something in her gut told her he hadn't just gone out for groceries. As she turned to leave, she noticed muddy footprints near his back door. Small, neat, and unmistakably feminine. When Lily returned home, her mother was waiting in the kitchen, humming softly as she stirred tea, the same song that had echoed faintly on the tape. Her mother looked up with that perfect, unbothered smile. "You were out early," she said. "Visiting old friends?" Lily's hand tightened around the cassette in her pocket. She forced a smile, her heart racing. "Yeah," she replied, her voice trembling. Her mother poured 2 cups of tea and slid one toward her. "Good," she said quietly. "Because it's important to say goodbye properly." Lily sat frozen, the cassette player's wheels still turning even after the sound had vanished. Her father's final words, "If you're hearing this, it means she found me first," seemed to crawl through the air, heavy and alive. Then came the noise. Not from the tape, from above. A faint, deliberate thud, 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 just like the one that ended the recording. Her chest tightened. She'd heard that sound before. Every night since she'd broken open the box. She used to tell herself it was the house settling, or an old pipe, or maybe a raccoon. But now she knew better. It matched the rhythm exactly. Lily's breath came shallow. The attic door loomed at the end of the hallway. That narrow square in the ceiling with the hanging cord. Her mother was downstairs, humming softly again, the same lullaby from the tape. The sound drifted through the floorboards like something familiar pretending to be safe. She turned the volume knob all the way up, replaying the tape. Her father's voice was desperate, shaking. "Don't let her smile fool you. If you hear the knocking, it means she's close. Don't open the door. Ever." Then came the banging again. But this time, from both the recording and the attic above her head. In perfect sync, the tape clicked to a stop. The house went silent, and then from the ceiling came a whisper. Faint but unmistakable. "Lily? Honey, why are you listening to that old thing?" Her mother's voice. But her mother was still humming in the kitchen. The humming stopped. The next sound was the creak of the first stair. Lily tore through the drawers in her mother's room, searching for proof that her mind wasn't slipping. Every instinct screamed that her father's letters were real, that the voice on the tape wasn't some twisted prank of her imagination. Beneath stacks of old utility bills and faded photographs, she found a brown envelope, brittle with age, marked only with her name. Inside were folded documents, adoption papers dated 2 years after her supposed birth. Her hands trembled as she unfolded them. There it was, her name, his signature, and the blank space where mother should have been. In its place, typed faintly and crossed out in pen, was another name entirely. Someone she had never heard of. The realization hit like cold water. Her mother had rewritten everything. Her past. Her family, even her identity. She sat on the floor, letters scattered around her like ghosts whispering truths she wasn't ready to face. Her father's last words from the tape echoed in her mind. "If you're hearing this, it means she found me first." Found him. And maybe silenced him before he could expose her. The thought twisted her stomach. Then Lily noticed something she hadn't before. The faint imprint of numbers on the back of one letter. A date, and beneath it, a set of initials that matched the adoption agent's signature. The same date was written on one of her father's old photographs, the last one ever taken of him. He had known what was coming, and he had left her a trail to follow. Her father hadn't abandoned her. He'd been protecting her. Every letter, every warning, every strange detail. It was all a breadcrumb trail, left in plain sight for the daughter he knew would eventually start asking questions. Lily pressed the papers against her chest, her breath uneven. Downstairs, the house was quiet again, too quiet. She thought she heard the attic door creak open, followed by that same soft humming. Only this time, the voice sounded closer. Just beyond her bedroom door, her father's handwriting seemed to burn in her memory now. "You'll know the truth when you stop believing her lies." Lily stood up slowly, clutching the last letter in her fist. She finally understood what her father had been trying to say all along. But to uncover the rest, she would have to face the one person who had been pretending to protect her all her life. And as her mother's shadow stretched across the doorway, Lily realized the real danger was never in the attic. It had been standing beside her the entire time. Lily woke to the sound of paper sliding across the floor. For a second, she thought it was just another dream, another night of restless paranoia. But when she sat up, her heart froze. A folded envelope lay at the edge of her bedroom door, pale under the glow of her nightlight. She reached for it with shaking hands, her pulse thudding in her ears. The moment she saw the handwriting, her breath caught. It was unmistakable. Her father's looping script? The same letters she'd been chasing for years. She hesitated before unfolding it, afraid of what she might read. But curiosity pushed harder than fear. Inside was a single line, short and urgent. "She knows you found out. Get out before she makes it look like mine." The words hit like ice. Her throat tightened, and she scanned the room, half expecting someone to be standing there. The house was dead silent, but the air carried that same electric heaviness that always came before something bad. For a moment, Lily thought about running straight to Julia, the friend who had helped her decode the previous letters. But it was past midnight, and her mother was still awake somewhere in the house. The low hum of the TV downstairs suddenly felt sinister, like a warning wrapped in static. She slipped out of bed, clutching the letter like a lifeline. Her mind raced. How could he have written this? He'd been dead for years. Either someone was trying to scare her, or someone had access to the same handwriting, the same memories, and the only person who could have forged it was the woman sleeping, or pretending to sleep, in the next room. She crept to the door and peered through the crack. The hallway light flickered weakly, shadows stretching unnaturally long against the walls. At the end of the corridor, her mother's room stood open, but she could see no movement, only the faint outline of the mirror reflecting her own frightened face. Then something shifted. A silhouette crossed the reflection for just a second, tall and motionless. Lily stumbled back, the wooden floor groaning beneath her feet. The sound of footsteps followed immediately, slow and deliberate, as if whoever, or whatever, was there already knew she'd read the letter. She stuffed it into her pocket, her breath coming in shallow gasps. When she reached for her phone, she noticed the screen flashing. One new voicemail. It was from an unknown number. She pressed play, expecting static. But instead, her father's voice whispered through the speaker, the same as on the old cassette. "You have to go now. Lily. She's not alone anymore." Tears welled in her eyes as she backed toward the window. The house suddenly felt alive, creaking, whispering, watching her. She could feel someone on the other side of the door, breathing, waiting. And beneath that breath, a soft, familiar laugh. Her mother's. The doorknob turned. Lily didn't wait. She pushed the window open, clutching her father's latest letter as her bare feet hit the cold grass outside. Behind her, the house went dark, all lights snuffed out in a single synchronized blink. Lily had spent the entire night in hiding, crouched beneath the neighbor's shed, watching the house that no longer felt like home. By sunrise, she knew what she had to do. The fear had hardened into something sharper. Determination. She couldn't run forever. She needed the truth. And this time, she'd get proof. She slipped back into the house just before noon, the camera hidden inside a small clock on the living room shelf. Every second of what was about to happen would be recorded. When her mother entered the room, she was dressed impeccably, as though nothing in the world was wrong. Her hair brushed smooth, a faint scent of lavender following her. She smiled, that same brittle, too wide smile that had haunted Lily since childhood. "You're home early," she said softly, voice measured. "Did you sleep well?" Lily forced herself to nod, her fingers trembling slightly. "I need to talk to you," Lily said, trying to sound steady. Her mother tilted her head, studying her like a hawk eyeing prey. "Of course, dear," she said. "What about?" Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out the letter. The newest one, the one slipped under her door. "About this," she said quietly. For a heartbeat, her mother didn't move. Then slowly her smile faded. It wasn't shock on her face. It was recognition. And beneath that, something colder. "You found another one," her mother whispered, almost to herself. Lily stepped back instinctively. "Who's sending them? How are they even written?" she demanded. "You said he was gone. You said there was nothing left." Her mother's expression shifted, no longer confused or defensive, but eerily composed, as if she'd rehearsed this moment long ago. "You were never supposed to see those," she said calmly, her tone stripped of warmth. "He wasn't supposed to finish them." The words struck like lightning. Lily's heart pounded as she took another step back. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her mother's eyes darted toward the hallway, then back at her, calculating. "Some things are better buried, Lily," she said softly, reaching into her cardigan pocket. "You wouldn't understand the kind of man your father really was." But Lily could see the truth flickering beneath the surface. The tremor in her mother's hand, the flick of fear she tried to hide. The air grew tense, suffocating, the only sound the faint ticking of the hidden camera clock. "I heard his voice," Lily said, barely more than a whisper. "He was terrified of you." Her mother's face hardened, the mask finally shattering. "Then he should have stayed quiet," she said coldly. Her hand slipped deeper into her pocket, metal glinting just for a second in the afternoon light. Lily's breath caught. She didn't wait to see what her mother was reaching for. The moment her mother stepped forward, Lily lunged toward the shelf, knocking the clock to the floor as if by accident. But she knew the camera had captured everything. "Stop lying to me," Lily cried, her voice breaking. Her mother smiled again, the same cruel practice smile. "Sweetheart," she whispered, stepping closer. "I'm not lying. I'm just finishing what he started." The smell of smoke still clung to the air long after the fire was out. Lily stood behind the yellow police tape, her hands trembling as she watched the wreckage of the only home she had ever known. The house was gone, blackened beams, melted glass, and silence where years of fear had once lived. The officers called it an electrical accident, but deep down she knew better. Some things didn't burn by chance. Something, or someone, had made sure of that. A week passed before she could bring herself to return to the site. The police had cleared most of the debris, leaving behind only scorched earth and fragments of memories she wished she could erase. But as she walked through the ashes, something pale caught her eye. A single envelope, barely singed, lying where her father's study once stood. Her heart froze when she saw the handwriting. It was his. She picked it up carefully, her fingers shaking as she brushed away soot. The paper was old but intact, sealed tight. Her name was written on it in the familiar, looping script she hadn't seen since the last letter. It read simply, "To Lily, my final promise." She hesitated before opening it, her pulse loud in her ears. Inside, the ink had bled slightly from the heat, but the words were still clear. "I kept my promise. You're free now." That was all. No explanation, no warning, just those 6 words. The date on the letter was the day of the fire. Her breath caught in her throat as she turned the envelope over and noticed something else. A faded postmark from a town 200 miles away. The same town where her father had been buried 8 years ago. Lily sank to her knees, the letter trembling in her hands. For the first time, the questions that had haunted her didn't feel like chains anymore. If this was his doing, then he hadn't been gone all along. At least, not completely. Maybe he had been waiting for the right moment. The one when she would finally see the truth he couldn't speak aloud. The investigators later told her the fire started in the basement, the same place she'd found the sealed room. The typewriter, the hidden photographs, they couldn't explain why that section had burned so cleanly or why the rest of the house had crumbled so fast. There were no signs of forced entry, no accelerants, no footprints. Just the letter, just his words. For days, Lily carried the envelope everywhere, tucked inside her coat pocket. She'd find herself tracing the letters of his handwriting whenever the nightmares came back. The ones where her mother's voice whispered from behind the walls. Every time she felt that old fear creeping in, she'd read the line again and again until her heartbeat slowed. "You're free now." She moved into a small apartment near the edge of town, away from everything she'd ever known. Life began to feel quieter, emptier, but also lighter. There were no more shadows pacing outside her door, no more echoes in the attic. Sometimes, in that stillness, she thought she heard his voice. Not warning her anymore, but watching over her. Weeks later, a small brown package arrived at her new address. No return label, no sender. Inside was her father's old typewriter, cleaned and working perfectly. One sheet of paper sat rolled into it. Typed across the top, in the same familiar rhythm of keys, were 4 words. "Now it's your turn." Lily stared at the page for a long time. Then slowly she sat down, pressed her fingers to the keys, and began to type.